I'm Janet Kolodner. I was asked to talk about the Cyberlearning program because I'm basically the one who made most of these slides when I was at NSF, so even though I'm not there anymore. And what I want to do, you heard this morning a lot about submitting to NSF. I was afraid it was going to be really boring, and I did not find it boring. I hope you guys didn't find it boring. I was quite happy with it, but you'll let me know later. But what I want to do now is tell you specifically about the Cyberlearning program. And I want to start by saying that I'm going to scare some of you. Okay? I know there's some of you here who think that you want to apply to the Cyberlearning program, and you're not even going to understand the things that I'm saying. So what I'm going to do at the end is I'm going to show you some examples of several other programs that you might want to apply to if this program isn't the right one. The other thing that, like Joyce said, I want to point out to Andy and Barry and Tammy. Where are you? I didn't see you. Okay. And Tammy, that feel free if you got something to add to what I say, and especially when people start asking questions. And feel free to ask questions as we go along. We'll see how it works. I might tell you not to, but we'll see how it works. Okay, so I want to start by just telling you a little bit about the Cyberlearning program itself. So it was started roughly 5 years ago. I'm the founding program officer for it, but it was thought up before that from some very wise people who understood that technology is at a point now where there are all kinds of things that we can do with it that might affect, might be able to positively affect education that you just couldn't do before. I mean, I remember I got my iPad right at the time I went to NSF 5 years ago. 5 years ago, and when I held it in my hands and I was doing things with it, my mouth was hanging open, thinking about the possibilities of if kids could carry something like this around. It's a quite different thing than carrying around the textbook or carrying around the notebook or carrying around a smartphone or it can go with you wherever you go. Smartphones do too, but it can go with you wherever you go, and it's got bigger real estate than a phone has. And there are just so many things you could do with it that you can't do with a laptop computer. So so that's the kind of thing that people were thinking about. We've also gotten to the point in our understanding of how people learn where it seemed like it was time to go beyond the traditional intelligent tutoring systems and the traditional, drill and kill systems, and to really address the needs that learners have when they're learning. I mean, they're not going to learn if they don't get engaged and put the time into it. So engagement, motivation, sticking with it, they're big things for learning. They're not generally what we talk about in cognitive science, right? But they're things that we know some things about and that we've got to talk about if we're really going to talk about learning in the real world. We know some things about the roles that our bodies play in helping us learn. I mean, we're trying to understand something that has shape, and we do all these things with our hands, right? Or somebody makes gestures at us. So we know some things about that, and man, nobody puts those into their intelligent systems or their intelligent tutoring systems or their drill and kill, whatever it is. So the idea of this program was that we've got these new technologies that can change what and how people learn, okay, and that we've got all these things we know about learning that we haven't really put into thinking. We haven't really used to think about education, to think about changing education, to think about the roles that technology might play, and that we needed a program that would, or they said that NSF needed a program that was going to take advantage of both of those things, okay, and where the results would be these new technologies, new understandings of technologies for supporting learning, and new opportunities at the same time for learning more about learning, because people would be able to have experiences they couldn't have had otherwise. I mean, with technology, you can get inside a volcano and you can, be part of the magma and then be part of the lava, right? And harden and, flow and whatever else. I mean, that's a whole different experience, right, than even watching it on video, okay, or watching it in a simulation. So we can learn new things about learning that we just couldn't learn before because people couldn't be in those kinds of situations. So the purpose of the program is to advance design and effective use of that next generation of learning technologies, not the stuff that's common right now, but the things that will be used 10, 15 years out regularly, to address pressing learning goals, okay, and increase understanding of how people learn and how to better foster and assess learning. I'm not going to tell you it's cross-directorate, but now I want to start telling you about how you go about doing that. What we tell people is, I don't generally tell people anymore because I'm not an NSF, but I still haven't trained myself not to say we, okay? But I was part of the we in terms of just thinking about what was needed. First of all, we expect that every proposal is going to, right up front, make clear a pressing societal need or a really neat technological opportunity, one or the other, related to learning that somebody's going to address. So an opportunity might be, hey, there's this new kind of machine learning algorithm and it can put things into categories, and wouldn't it be neat if we could help people categorize using that? Or a new opportunity might be, we know how to build systems that can help people experience phenomena third person, but what if we could help build systems that could help them experience phenomena first person, right? Really get into it. There's a new technology coming out that allows that, so that would be an opportunity. A pressing societal need could, something that somebody posed today earlier as a problem was, you've got these people who have sickle cell anemia, or you've got people who have had organ transplants and they have to take medications the rest of their lives, right? And their parents are helping them do it and making sure while they're in high school, but now they're about to go into the world, okay? And they got to do it themselves. Well, there's a pressing need, okay? Another pressing need, we've got all these people who drop out of school. Why are they dropping out of school? We've got people who are passionate about things, they're very excited about them, and school doesn't do it for them. How can we help them to follow those passions otherwise? Okay, so those are just some examples of some pressing needs and some technological opportunities. And Bob talked this morning about STEM being important, but it turns out for the Cyberlearning program, it doesn't have to be STEM. So there's something that got funded that was helping adolescents learn pro-social behaviors, at-risk adolescents learn pro-social behaviors, and we've had English as a second language stuff that we funded, and history. There's a neat history one that I really like that we funded. So the idea here with Cyberlearning is that we're addressing societal needs and we're taking advantage of technological opportunities. There's going to be some domain you're going to work in to do that, but that's the big thing. Now, the other thing is that that with a Cyberlearning program, what you're doing is you're proposing an innovation. An innovation is a different thing than an application. Okay, so you're not going to build, you're not going to propose to build the piece of software that's going to help somebody with sickle cell learn how to manage their sickle cell. But what you're going to do is you're going to suggest that there's certain ways of using technology and to afford social interactions and afford knowledge, looking things up that will help people develop their identities as people who have to manage their chronic disease over the long term. And you happen to be doing that in the domain of sickle cell, okay, and doing that as an example that would work for other kinds of situations where not only where somebody's got to manage their chronic disease, but where you want to help somebody develop some change of behavior, right? There's an example of what an innovation is. Or you're going to create some new way of use technology to create some new way of having people interact with the computer when they're trying to understand something. That would be an innovation. Or a new way of using virtual reality software to experience and be able to affect the insides of what's going on in a deep, dark, hidden place where there are all kinds of natural phenomena, like inside an earthquake, or inside an earthquake. So inside a volcano, or underneath the crust of the earth, right? Or inside the blood vessels. Okay, that would be innovations, and you're working on the technology to allow that to happen, and you're going to do it in some particular domain that's representative. Okay, and that's your innovation. So what we want you to do is imagine that and invent the future of learning, the future of learning with technology. As Chris said before, right? He said 50 years from now we're not going to talk about cyber learning. We're going to have technology infused in everything. So the future of learning. And we want you to take an iterative approach to doing that design. So what we want you to do is say, look, there's this stuff that the literature can tell us about what's hard about doing this thing that I want to accomplish. And there's this literature that tells us about how to do some of the things that I want to accomplish, but it doesn't take us all the way. And there's this literature that tells us about how people learn in these kinds of situations, or there's this literature that tells us about how people learn, but we don't know specifically how they do it in this kind of situation. So we want you to go, NSF wants you to go from, the pressing societal need or technological opportunity, okay, to ideas about technology use, your innovative technology use that is informed by what we know about learning, by what's possible with technology. And you're working on design. You never get it right first time around when you're working on design. So you're working on design. So you're going to start with the best you know right now, and you're going to make that clear in your proposal, right? And then you're going to do iterative development, okay? And you're going to do some observation. You're going to do some other data collection with each iteration that's going to help you not only to make these ideas that you have about the technology, not only to make the technology more usable, but also to make the technology more effective, to learn some things about how to use it well. And the program also wants you to, as you're doing that, to be collecting data that would help you learn some new things about how people learn, or about fostering learning, or about how to assess learning, contributing back to all those some of those literatures that you took, that you were informed by. So you become informed by literature, and you inform that field as well, like Tammy was talking about. Okay, the innovation, okay, is going to be the thing you build, the piece of technology that you build, okay, and that you iteratively make better and better, is going to be representative of a new genre of learning technology, aiming towards new types. And you're going to design and build and iterate on some example, representative example from that type. And try to pull out some guidelines from what you're doing in that very specific domain, okay, that would help somebody else build the next one of these for another domain. So if you're working on technology for being able to, somehow immerse people in what's going on in the blood vessels and move things around in there and see what happens as a result, then somebody else ought to be able to use what you're learning about how to help somebody learn in that kind of environment to build the one where somebody's, the molecule inside the volcano, okay, or something else like that. So research to inform development that other people will do is what that's about. I already really talked about this. It's not just STEM. It's also not just formal education. Okay, it turns out that the Cyberlearning program has funded, the vast majority of what it's funded has been formal education, has been school or college. But the idea is really to learn about supporting learning. And it could be formal learning, informal learning. It could be doing things in the home. There were some things that got funded that were about families learning together. Something that got funded that was about learning out in the community park. So it could be anywhere. You're going to use any technology is fine. Usually people are not inventing new technologies. Usually they're inventing new ways of using technologies that are out there and new ways of integrating technologies that are out there. And you've got to aim beyond the state of the art. Right? If we know how to do it, if you know how to do it, it's probably not a research proposal. Okay? It's just a development proposal. So there got to be questions about how to do it. And the program wants to use, any scholarly literature on learning and how people learn that's relevant to the problem you want to address or the opportunity you want to address. Okay? So if you're looking at kids who don't know English doing well in school anyway, okay, then you're going to use literature about learning a second language, and you're going to use literature about feeling left out, and those are you're going to use literature about those things, okay, in addition to the standard learning literature that might be around. It's also just fine to be focusing on a collective learning together. Okay? It doesn't have to be a focus on individual learners. It could be focus could be on groups of learners learning together with each other. How do we do a better job of making that happen? Okay? And of course, you have different ways of measuring when you're measuring the learning that an individual is doing than when your intent is to, know how a collective is learning. Whatever you're doing has to advance our imagination about what's possible and have potential to really make a difference. Okay. I don't think there's a lot. Well, if you're going to integrate design and research on learning, you're going to need to be grounded in the state of the art. You can't do this stuff without interdisciplinary teams. And that's the reason that interdisciplinary teams are required on these projects. Okay, they don't just say, the solicitation doesn't just say, it would be nice if you have an interdisciplinary team. The solicitation says you must have an interdisciplinary team. Now, somebody who's working on English as a second language and knows technology is going to need people who know learning, and in particular, or is going to need expertise on how people learn and expertise on somebody who's expert in learning second languages, and who knows what other expertise. Somebody who's already expert on learning a second language, but not expert on technology, might have these great ideas about learning learning English, but they're going to need to have collaborators who know technology and who know the way technology has been used for fostering learning, okay, and who know more learning in general, not simply the learning of a second language. So I don't know why that says strongly recommended. It should say required. And you're imagining the future, so there's no need to be focused on scale. It's, you know, if you could foresee it being possible in 15 years, that's just fine. And that's not the same as other programs in EHR, because most of the programs in EHR, they want you to focus on like the next 5 to 8 years or something, I would say. So, so Cyberlearning wants you to focus beyond that. Most of you, if you apply to the Cyberlearning program, are going to apply for exploratory grants. And exploratories, EXPs, are appropriate when you've got this idea about an innovation. You can make a first pass at imagining what it looks like, and you really need to try and do things a lot of different ways to figure out what's worth doing to really make it come to reality, come to fruition. So EXPs are when your innovation is new, its properties are not well understood. So a couple examples. Somebody mentioned, Bob mentioned Fitbits this morning. Cynthia Carter-Ching, many years ago, I don't remember how many years ago, she put in a proposal for helping kids to become more health conscious, okay? Helping them to develop new fitness habits. And she was going to use some, you know, whiz-bang new technology that was not out on the market yet, okay, that was going to measure their activity and measure their heart rate and up the stairs and, you know, things like that. It turned out she ended up using Fitbits. They came out on the market and they were right there. And what she wanted, she had this idea. It was sort of a kind of vague at the time, though. By the time she got funded, it was more specific. But you know, she was going to engage them in some kind of game where they would be playing themselves as their avatar, their identity in the game was somebody who had the same fitness level that they had, right? And that fitness level would vary according to the way that they'd been eating and working out and, you know, whatever else. So that if they had not been eating enough, you know, it would be pretty hard to do some of the physical things they need to do in the game, okay? And if they've been eating too much and were, you know, not working out their muscles, that would also be very hard, right? But if they were exercising and if they were eating right, you know, the things that they needed to accomplish would be easier. So, so you know, it's a neat idea, right? It's a neat idea, but the first way she thought of it and the first way any of you would think about designing this would not necessarily be the way that would work. So they went through a lot of iterations to finally come up with, you know, something that worked. I shouldn't say something that worked. An idea that worked. Not pieces. I mean, even beyond the software that works, the idea that works. So, and what I should say, and at the same time, I can't remember what their research was on learning, but what I suggested their research should be, as I recall, is beginning to learn some things about how to affect behavior change. And to learn enough about that to actually be able to know, with a new proposal that would go in, a DIP proposal that they put in later, what would be the really important things to focus on in research about affecting behavior change. Okay, so there's one example. A Cyberlearning proposal has 3 parts. Okay, there's the technological innovation, there's the research advancing understanding of how people learn, and the research pointing towards broad use or transferability of the new genre. I already said that. And what is expected is that you'll do those 2 kinds of research in the context of your iterative design. So it's not like you won't be having some separate, we'll do research off on the side kind of thing. Okay? But the data you're collecting as you're taking your technology out there and trying it out is the same data that will help you to gain traction on your research questions. Oh, look at this, Tammy. Maybe you should say something about it. And then, so this is an example of, they had this opportunity. There was somebody at University of Maryland in computer science who was making this nifty shirt that that had this these e-textiles that could do that. And the question was, how can we really use that as a learning? What's it supposed to be learning? So the research is on early biology learning, including embodied cognition. Okay. And some things about the genre. I mean, the genre has to do with uncovering the invisible and e-textiles, and I'm not sure what else. I was not allowed to read this proposal because Tammy was my student, so I have a conflict of interest. And they had to bring together expertise from computer science, learning sciences, and developmental psychology to do that. Here's an example of one that's farther along. So the two examples you've heard about so far were EXPs. Here's an example of a DIP, something that comes later. Okay, is the idea of using simulation theaters with computer vision so that they can see the improvised gestures that somebody is making. And I can't remember exactly what it was for. It was funded while I was there, but I don't know if I read this one or not. They basically wanted to understand the role that embodied cognition could play if this technology, again, this was about a technological opportunity, being able to automatically classify improvised gestures. And the people were learning about, they were learning scientific things, and I don't remember what it was, and acting things out, acting out concepts. And their research is about how embodied cognition occurs across domains. And their genre is tools for future research on gesture and gesture-based instruction. Okay, so their genre is that they're building this stuff for gesture-based instruction and research on gesture, and their genre is these tools that are going to allow us to do more of that. And they had to bring in computer science people and sociolinguistics people. Those are the guys who know gesture. Okay, and learning scientists to do that. And here's an example of an integrated project. That's the biggest kind of project. This is, I should tell you who did this one. It's University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. It's, what's his name? I can't remember. Okay, this one's done by Mitch Resnick and Natalie Rusk and Mimi Ito. Okay, and what they want to do is they say, look, there's this Scratch program out there. It's wonderful. You've got all these people from high SES who are coming in and using it. They're learning lots of things about computing. They're following their passions. And you know what? There are all these kids who really ought to be taking advantage of it, and they don't have access to it now. Kids who don't have computers in their homes. Kids who don't have parents to introduce them to this kind of stuff. Kids who don't have teachers to introduce them to this kind of stuff. So what can we do? How can we make it more accessible and help these people who have had fewer opportunities to do computing in the past be able to move into doing the kinds of sophisticated stuff that's the kids with opportunities are doing. Okay, so they're studying the programming environment, the professional development, the kind of community tools that can be change agents, but they're also designing new sort of micro worlds for Scratch that would help kids to get excited and allow them to do something quickly without being overwhelmed, so they'll want to come back and do more. Okay, and they have some theory about what it takes to bring the kids in and keep them in, and they have ethnographers, social informatics people, computing people, law and policy people, learning scientists. I mean, this is a huge team. Okay. Another kind of proposal to cyberlearning is, I'm not going to talk about this. Should I talk about CAPS? I don't think so. Okay. So every project needs an important, you've got to have an important learning need or technological opportunity. A proposed innovation that you would iteratively refine, research advancing understanding of how people learn, that requires the technology innovation in order to carry it out, and research promoting broad use and transfer to other projects of the genre. Okay. Pressing learning need could be drawing in underserved learners, helping learn. I went over all that. I don't have to say it again. And reviewers are going to look for a lot of different things. How important is it? How well have you justified it? How clear are you about what it will take to get there? Your innovation is going to aim beyond the state of the art. It's going to be a new or emerging learning environment or set of learning technologies. Should have the potential to transform learning. Okay. Can be futuristic, I said that already, and should have potential to spawn a whole new set of other things that are similar. That's the genre. Okay, so what counts as a genre? Did I say this already? Think about your innovation as representative of a whole set that are similar. I said that already. Should I say more about iterative refinement or not? No, I think I did it. Okay. What will reviewers be looking for? They'll be looking for what's your new genre. They'll be looking for how well is your first idea of what it should be informed by research. Research on a lot of different things, technology, learning processes, targeted population. They'll be looking for how well it addresses that purpose, that problem or opportunity that you stated up front. They want to know what the learner's experience will be like. And it's a really good idea when you want to tell somebody what a learner's experience would look like to show screenshots. The Cyberlearning program asks you to put 5 screenshots in an appendix. Other programs you apply to will not allow that. So you have to find ways to put your screenshots into text instead of text. The reviewers will want to know how well will what you aim to build serve as a model or representative of a new genre, and how will you build it, how will you refine it, what's your starting point, what's your process. Research questions. Research needs to inform theory, and it could be informing theory about how people learn, so the processes involved in learning, about how to help people learn, fostering learning, how to assess learning, or how to design for learners, and it says and or. So the answers to your questions should require the experience of using your technology. I think I said that before. So your studies need to contribute to some branch of learning research. With an EXP, you're going to be doing a lot more with technology than you are going to be doing with research, but whatever research you do should help you, should shed enough light on your questions that you know how to do bigger research in the next stage. And I think that that the next thing I want to do is just go back to that point I made previously about you needing good teams to do it. So you need to include all the expertise that's needed to achieve both your technical goals and your research goals. The solicitation tells you that you should have an advisory board and also have co-PIs. Okay? Your advisory board is going to be people, and don't be afraid to ask big, important people who you're scared of. Okay? Your advisory board is going to be people who can help you do the very best job that you could do. Tammy was talking this morning, okay, about, giving advice to people, having things written I would write all over the things that she wrote. She writes all over the things that her students write. That's the kind of thing that you want from your advisory board. You want them to be just helping you be the very best researcher you can be. Your co-PIs are going to fill in, in the places where you don't have expertise and you need some other expertise to achieve your goals. And the other thing that I want to say, and there's lots of different expertise on learning, I said that already, on the targeted content, on technology, on learners, on practices of educating in a targeted environment. If you're doing middle school, you better have somebody who knows middle school students and middle school teachers and environments. I'm going to bring him in a moment. Yeah, and one of the things that when I was there, started pushing my last year, is that your expertise should include people who know somebody or a set of people who between them have imagination about designing learning experiences. So clearly I didn't use much imagination just now in deciding how I was going to help you learn. I'm looking at these slides and I'm talking about these slides and I'm talking at you and you're not asking me questions, and how much can you really learn from that? Okay? But we did spend some considerable time thinking about how we could help you become a community and how we could help you get to know each other. Okay? And so there are more things that are happening in the context of this day and a half to help you do that we've thought about. Okay, the whole experience of what you're doing in this day and a half is the learning experience, plus the interactions that you'll have with mentors, plus the writing that you'll do and the advice that you'll get on that, plus when you come back for the next workshop. Okay, that's all, design of the learning experience. Okay, when you're thinking about designing for middle schoolers learning science or for English language learners, being able to do the best they can, or for kids who have sickle cell, really learning how to take care of their sickle cell when they're independent, you want to think about the whole range of experiences that they need to have to be able to do that, right? And which parts of that are you going to be designing for, okay? And how are you going to take advantage of what's known about what they really need to be able to do to learn? Okay, if they need to be able to, if it's really hard to learn about Earth's processes, about geology by just reading about it, okay, and there are all kinds of misconceptions people have, okay, then there's certain kinds of manipulations of stuff that people need to do it, or there's certain kinds of, or maybe they need that experience of riding on the molecule through the magma and through the lava and getting closer to other ones as it hardens and whatever. I mean, maybe that's what they need to do to really get it, or maybe that's what they need to do to really get drawn in and be excited by it, so that then they'll do the other things. It's important to think about the whole